YouTube, what's going on? Get the likes up right from the jump. You already know what this is going to do. Now, Albert Baby Bell's story began in blood and humiliation. Born in Omaha, Nebraska in 1899, his parents soon moved to Georgia, where his childhood became a nightmare. His father, a 7-foot, 300-pound sharecropper, lived under the thumb of a plantation owner whose son regularly brutalized his mother. Now, one night, the abuse went too far. Bell's father tracked down the owner's son and beat him to death with his bare hands. When he came home, he was covered in blood. A few hours later, Bell heard the thunder of hooves. A mob of white men stormed their shack. They dragged his father outside and beat him senseless and lynched him from a peach tree. The mob then took turns with Bell's mother before disappearing into the night. By the morning, the mother was gone and Bell was left alone. Another sharecropper family took him in, and from the age of a boy until 17, Bell bent his back in the cotton fields, working the very same dirt where his father bled. At the age 17, Bell snapped. He fled the plantation, hopping on the freight train north. That was when the seed of his life's work began. Now, when he reached Chicago, he broke in his first prostitute, a white girl. He worked her till she collapsed, under the weight of his cruelty. Within a year, she drove herself to suicide. But Bell, he was unbothered, he was unmoved. To him, pimping white women wasn't just business, it was revenge. Every dollar he pulled from them was payback for the white men who destroyed his family. From that point on, he swore he would never stop. Bell drifted through gambling joints, pool halls, and hustles. When he landed in Chicago in 1930, that's when two worlds collide: pimping and organized crime. Chicago was ruled by the Jones brothers, who ran a $25 million a year policy syndicate. Their numbers racket stretched across the Black Belt, from barbershops to candy stores. It was an empire of money and muscle, and Bell quickly became one of the tools. At first, he was the muscle for the Jones brothers, collecting debts, enforcing their law, and carrying out hits. One night when a bar owner fell behind on the policy payments, Bell was in the building. He brought everyone around at the bar, then dragged the owner into an alley and shot him twice in the chest. He walked back and finished his drink like it was nothing, and left. No one at the bar said a word. That was Bell's reputation. He didn't just enforce, he terrorized. But while the Jones brothers made him valuable as a killer, it was pimping that made him legendary. Bell didn't just run women, he ran them with a cruelty that shocked even the streets of Chicago. He believed in cop and blow. Get a girl, work her until she's broke, then replace her. See, the Bell, a prostitute, owed him 16 hours a day, no excuses. If she was sick, he laughed in her face and tell her get out there. If it was her time of the month, he shoved cotton in her hand and ordered her back into the street. No woman under his control was allowed to stop working. He called it discipline, others call it sadism. Now, one story that circulated came from his bookie joint, a bathroom door that was marked out of order for days. Now, customers thought it was plumbing until they learned that it was two women locked inside. They had stolen from Bell, and he wasn't playing no games. And his punishment was to starve them in the dark. For 3 days, they was just surviving off of water from the bathroom. That was Bell's method: humiliation and pain. By the mid-1930s, Bell shocked the city by traveling openly with 32 women. Most of them was white. Now, of course, this was unheard of back in those times. Black pimps, they typically worked quietly, but Bell, he flaunted his power. He paraded white women on State Street behind his Duesenberg, stepping out in a cream silk suit, fedora tilt just right. While his women trailed behind him, cops looked away. He paid the right ones off, and the Jones brothers' shadows kept him untouchable. Now, this was Jim Crow America. White women was considered off limits to black, especially in public. See, for a black pimp to openly keep and control white women was a direct act of defiance against both racism and the law. It was a message: I can have what you say I can't. In Chicago, parading white prostitutes was a show of dominance over women, the system, and even rival pimps. White prostitutes fetch higher prices in the underground sex market, so that was that advantage to them. Many white men, clients, paid more for white women, even if they also desired black women. Having a stable white woman gave Bell more money and more leverage in Chicago's vice scene. Normally, a black man with a white woman risk being lynched or in prison. But Bell had the Jones brothers behind him, and they were powerful enough to shield him. That protection allowed him to do what other pimps wouldn't dare. Walk through Chicago's South Side with 32 women, most of them white behind him. In the 1940s, most black pimps controlled black women exclusively. White pimps controlled both white and black women, but it was extremely rare for a black pimp to control white women in large numbers. That made Bell stand out, and it just added to his reputation as the most feared pimp in America. He lived flamboyantly. He owned a Duesenberg. He carried himself like royalty. He kept a pet ocelot in a penthouse apartment that belonged to one of the white women. While she signed the lease, Bell ran this operation from her home. His women worked brothels, cabarets, and street corners, and every dime they made flowed back into his pocket. But of course, he wasn't just a pimp. Just like I said, he was laying down a murder game. He was a killer. On June 4th, 1943, Bell murdered his own friend, Princeton Ray, in cold blood. Dozens of witnesses saw him fire 5 shots from his Garfield Boulevard balcony, the last one tearing through Ray's throat. The black press erupted. The Chicago Defender condemned the miscarriage of justice. Yet Bell walked free, defended by Euclid L. Teller, Chicago's star black attorney. Money and power bought him his freedom. Plus, Euclid L. Teller, he was like the Johnny Cochran of that time. Another murder followed a man calling him ugly. Bell lured him into an alley, forced him to kneel, pissed on a man, then shot him in the head. He laughed as he walked away. With $5 grand cash, he beat the case again. Bell lived by the code that he could kill anyone, anytime without consequences. His women knew this too. One prostitute years later recalled how he once held her out of a second-story window by her ankles after she refused to hand over her day's earnings. When she finally broke and promised him every dollar, he pulled her back and kissed her forehead and told her he loved her. That was Baby Bell's cycle: terror, control, false affection. By the 1940s, he was most feared pimp in the country, ruling a stable of white women in a city where that was almost unthinkable for a black man, just like we talked about earlier. He thrived in the shadow of the Jones Brothers' empire, enforcing for their policy syndicate while building his own reign. But time caught up with him. By the 1950s, his looks faded, his money thin. He looked at damn near 100 years old. He sat in misery. His women slipped away. The Jones Brothers' grip weakened, and new hustlers took over the streets. Bell sat bitter and aging, a relic of another era. Once flamboyant, he now shuffled through the South Side like a ghost. His final years was pitiful. The man who once traveled with 32 women and a pet ocelot now sat alone, staring into a bottle, haunted by the screams of his mother, the lynching of his father, and the blood of the men that he murdered. The streets no longer feared him, they pitied him. In the last act, our Baby Bell put a gun to his own head, pulled the trigger. While his legend endures as one of the darkest in Chicago's underworld, a story of trauma turned to cruelty, of revenge turned to vice, and of a pimp whose evil made him both untouchable and unforgettable. Now, don't forget, get the likes up, hit me up in the comments, turn your notifications on so you don't miss out on the content. Subscribe if you're new, check out the playlist, check out my last videos, man. And we vibe every week, so make sure you don't miss out. Don't forget to hit the Patreon for exclusive videos. If you want longer videos, if you want the content you can just vibe out to, exclusive stories. Don't forget to hit members22.com to cop your fragrance. I'm out.